The prison did not exist on any star map. It floated alone between two dead systems, far from trade routes and patrol lanes, wrapped in layers of sensor distortion and gravitational noise. Even the Empire officially denied it. According to public records, nothing had ever been built there. According to human intelligence, that lie was the reason it mattered. Commander Elias Ward watched the structure rotate slowly on the tactical display. It was enormous, angular, and old. Its design followed imperial logic, cold symmetry, brutal efficiency, and no sign of comfort. The Empire did not build places like this to hold criminals. It built them to erase problems. "Last chance to abort," the pilot said quietly. Ward did not look away from the screen. "We didn't cross 14 light-years to turn back." Imperial prisons were famous for their layered defenses. Mines, auto-turrets, kill zones. This place had none of them. Either the Empire was arrogant beyond reason, or whatever was inside was considered so secure it didn't need protection. The hatch melted open under a focused plasma cutter. The team slipped inside. The corridors were clean and bright, lit by white light that never flickered. No guards appeared. No alarms sounded. Their scanners showed internal security systems active but oddly passive, like a predator watching instead of striking. They advanced deeper. Cells lined the corridors, transparent containment fields showing empty rooms. Some had markings scratched into the walls, alien scripts, mathematical symbols, even crude drawings, signs of long confinement. But no prisoners. "Where is everyone?" one of the soldiers whispered. Ward didn't answer. He felt it too. This place wasn't abandoned. It was curated. They reached the central block. There was only one cell occupied. It stood apart from the rest, surrounded by additional power conduits and reinforced field generators. Inside sat a lone figure. She was alien but humanoid enough to be unsettling. Tall and slender, with pale blue skin that reflected the light like polished stone. Long silver markings traced her face and neck in patterns that looked ceremonial rather than decorative. Her eyes were closed. She was not restrained. Ward raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. "That's it," their tech specialist said, voice tight. "All this for one prisoner. We're human." Drones deployed from hidden panels, weapons charging. Ward swore under his breath. "Cut the field now." She stepped forward, moving with sudden speed, grabbing a fallen Imperial weapon from a deactivated drone and using it with expert precision. Ward stared for half a second too long. "She knows how to fight," one soldier said. "Yes," the alien replied calmly, firing again. "They taught me very well." Heavy units emerged, weapons tearing into walls and floors. The team took hits but kept moving, dragging no one, slowing for no one. Humanity had learned long ago that survival meant momentum. The alien kept pace easily. At one junction, Ward triggered a controlled explosion, collapsing a corridor behind them. The shockwave barely slowed the pursuing drones. "This is excessive," the pilot said over comms. "For one prisoner." The pod launched just as the prison's main weapons powered up. It missed them by meters. As the stars stretched into lines and the ship jumped to faster than light, silence filled the cabin. The soldiers checked wounds, systems stabilized. The alien sat apart from them, hands folded, posture straight. Ward approached slowly. "You didn't scream," he said. "That would have been pointless," she replied. "You didn't ask why we came." The way Imperial systems had bent around her presence. "You're not just a prisoner, are you?" Orders were issued that had not been spoken in centuries. Erase the record, eliminate all witnesses, recover the asset at any cost, because humanity had done the unthinkable. They had freed something the Empire had buried not out of mercy, but out of fear. The human ship did not slow down after the jump. It kept moving through empty space, changing direction twice, then a third time, each maneuver designed to confuse any possible tracker. The Empire was powerful, but it was also rigid. Humans relied on chaos. It had kept them alive before. Commander Elias Ward stood on the bridge, watching the stars blur and reform. His team had survived, but barely. 2 soldiers were injured, one seriously. Still, no one complained. Everyone understood the weight of what they had done. They had taken something the Empire did not lose. Behind a reinforced door, the alien sat alone in a medical bay. She had refused sedation, refused restraints, and calmly allowed human doctors to scan her. The scans had revealed something strange. Her biology was advanced, optimized, and heavily modified in ways humans did not fully understand. "She's not enhanced like a soldier," one medic said quietly. "This is planned, like she was designed for leadership, long lifespan, neural density, stress resistance." "Are we alone?" You still haven't told us who you are. The Empire believes stability is sacred, she continued. Anything that threatens the long-term balance is eliminated. Wars, cultures, ideas. I was next in line. Erasure is cleaner. The alien was given temporary quarters under light guard. Not because Ward feared her, but because protocol demanded it. She did not protest. She observed. She watched humans move, talk, argue, laugh even after nearly dying. This confused her more than the violence. Humans did not behave like imperial citizens. There was no strict hierarchy in their casual interactions. A technician argued openly with a superior. A soldier joked with a pilot. Orders were questioned, not blindly followed. The Empire would have called this disorder. She found it fascinating. Ward received a secure transmission from Earth Command. Faces filled the screen, some curious, some worried, some angry. You brought back a royal, one official said flatly. She wasn't wearing a crown, Ward replied. You've triggered something big, another said. Imperial fleets are repositioning. This isn't a recovery mission, it's a purge. Others argued that returning her would prove humanity weak. Ward listened, then spoke. They erased her because she represented change. If we give her back, we tell the galaxy we accept that logic. You are divided. Humanity is unpredictable. That's confirmation, Ward muttered. The alien watched the broadcasts with interest. They are trying to control the narrative. In the Empire, futures were calculated, lives were optimized, sacrifices were acceptable if they served stability. Humans did not seem to think that way. One evening, as the ship drifted in a quiet system, she asked Ward a question. Why did you come for me? She asked. He considered lying, then didn't. Because we heard there was a prison that officially didn't exist, he said. And when someone builds a place like that, it usually means they're afraid of what's inside. But the Empire will make it so. On the human ship, Ward stared out into space, feeling the weight of what was coming. They had rescued one prisoner, but they had also uncovered a truth the Empire would kill to protect. And humanity, whether it wanted to or not, was now standing between an old order and a future that refused to stay buried. The first human colony to go dark was not on the border. That was what confused everyone. It was a quiet research outpost far from Imperial space, built on a rocky moon with no strategic value. No fleet protected it, no weapons ringed it. The colony existed to study stellar radiation and nothing more. When its signal vanished, Earth Command assumed a technical failure. When the rescue ship arrived, it found nothing. The station was intact. Power was running. Life support worked. Meals were half finished. Tools lay where hands had dropped them. The people were gone. No bodies, no damage, no explanation. Commander Elias Ward stood in the briefing room of his ship as the report played on the main screen. His jaw tightened. They're not attacking us, one officer said quietly. They're erasing us. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. This is doctrine, she said. Containment through removal. They believe fear spreads slower than absence. Panic began to spread through human space. News networks tried to stay calm, but fear leaked through every broadcast. People demanded answers, demanded protection. The Empire did not issue threats. It did not need to. In a secure chamber deep within Imperial territory, high-ranking officials watched projections update in real time. Human population centers blinked on the display. Probability curves shifted. Instability increasing, one advisor said. Acceptable losses, another asked. Within tolerance, came the reply. The Successor's image appeared on a separate screen marked as a variable. She remains alive, an official noted. For now, another said, her usefulness is ending. This was no longer a rescue operation gone wrong. This was war, just not the kind humanity expected. Ward stood with the Successor in a quiet observation room, stars drifting past the window. They're not coming for you, Ward said. They're coming through us. I predicted they would respond this way. It makes it real. There is a difference. And they're winning by doing nothing. Some feared escalation, others saw opportunity. In the end, the decision was made. The broadcast would happen. The signal went out on every known frequency, translated into dozens of languages. Human networks amplified it. Independent relays picked it up. Even Imperial citizens found ways to watch despite firewalls and sensors. The image stabilized. The Successor stood before a simple background. No symbols, no weapons, no throne. I was declared dead, she said. I am not. Human engineers rerouted it faster than they could block it. I stand with humanity, she said. Not as their ruler, not as their weapon, but as proof that the Empire fears its own future. Not attacking Earth directly, but tightening the noose. Trade routes closed. Neutral worlds were pressured to choose sides. Humanity was labeled a destabilizing species. Sanctions followed, blockades, threats. And still something had changed. Small protests broke out on Imperial worlds, quiet ones. People asked questions they had never dared to ask before. Why was she imprisoned? Why was she erased? Why did humans get to choose? In response, the Empire cracked down hard. The Successor watched reports of the unrest with a heavy expression. "This is the cost," she said. Ward stood beside her. "You're not wrong, but you're not alone." Human ships fought with everything they had, but Imperial technology was superior. Still, something strange happened. Human captains did not retreat in expected patterns. They split their forces, sacrificed ships to save civilians, and used tactics that made no strategic sense. Imperial commanders hesitated. That hesitation saved thousands of lives. After the battle, Ward received a message from an Imperial officer, not an official channel, a private one. "You are difficult to predict," the message said. "This makes you dangerous." As weeks passed, the conflict spread, but not cleanly, not neatly. Imperial plans met resistance not just from humans, but from alien worlds that began to quietly refuse cooperation. Not rebellion, non-compliance. Delays, mistakes, lost shipments. The Empire had ruled through perfection. Now cracks were forming. In a private moment, the Successor spoke again to Ward. "If I reach the capital," she said, "they will try to kill me. That is why they buried me." It did not come through military channels or public broadcasts. It came as a sealed diplomatic packet, encoded with Imperial authority older than most of their laws. The message was brief, formal, and impossible to ignore. The Successor was summoned to the Imperial capital, under truce. Commander Elias Ward read the message twice, then a third time, as if repetition might change its meaning. It did not. "They want you in the heart of their power," he said. "Yes," the Successor replied calmly, "because they believe they still control the rules. They were honored exactly as written and violated everywhere else. They will try to isolate her," one advisor said, "separate her from us. They're offering it because they're running out of clean options." They sent one ship, civilian-marked, lightly armed. Its crew was mixed, diplomats, observers, and a small security team that pretended not to be soldiers. Ward was among them. "You don't have to come," the Successor told him as they boarded. "I know," he said. "That's why I am." Protests continued, not large enough to be called rebellions, but widespread enough to be noticed. Imperial enforcement was firm, but no longer invisible. People were watching now. The capital system was unlike anything humans had seen. The star at its center burned a controlled blue, stabilized by ancient technology. Massive structures orbited it in perfect alignment, connected by streams of light and energy. The capital world itself was covered in vast cities, layered and ordered, every district planned centuries in advance. It was beautiful and suffocating. As the human ship approached, Imperial escorts formed up around it. No weapons powered up, no threats spoken. The truce held. They were guided to a landing platform that overlooked the capital's central spire, a structure so tall it pierced the upper atmosphere. That was where the throne chamber waited. The Successor stepped onto Imperial ground for the first time in years. Nothing happened. No arrest, no execution, no cheering crowds, just silence. Inside the spire, halls stretched wide and empty, polished to perfection. Imperial officials waited at precise intervals, watching without expression as she passed. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with fear, a few with something close to relief. Ward felt it then. This place was not prepared for uncertainty. The throne chamber was vast, circular, and cold. The throne itself stood at the center, elevated, unoccupied. Around it sat the High Council, robed and still, their faces unreadable. The Successor walked forward alone. "I stand before you," she said, her voice carrying without effort. "Not as a ghost, not as a rumor, but as your rightful successor. For the good of the Empire, because your order cannot survive the future. I am not here to seize power through force. I am here to claim responsibility. Humanity," he said, turning slightly toward Ward, "has been offered a place within the Empire. Autonomy, protection, prosperity, all of this can end peacefully if you withdraw your support. Same as her. What replaces it? We will recognize your claim," the lead counselor said, "under conditions." "Then this truce ends," the counselor said, and humanity will suffer the consequences. Imperial guards moved but hesitated, because across the galaxy the broadcast continued, and people were watching their leaders threaten their own future. The successor stepped closer to the throne. "You can kill me," she said. "You can try, but you cannot erase what has already begun." For the first time in centuries, the Empire faced open defiance not from an enemy, but from itself, and humanity stood at its side not as conquerors, but as proof that another way existed. The old order trembled, not from violence, but from choice. The alarms did not turn into gunfire. That was the first sign the Empire had already lost something it could not recover. Imperial guards stood frozen around the throne chamber, weapons half raised, eyes darting between the council, the successor, and the human delegation. They had trained their whole lives to respond to orders, but no order came. Every command required certainty, and certainty was gone. Across the galaxy, the broadcast continued. People watched as their rulers hesitated. That moment of hesitation mattered more than any speech. The lead counselor finally spoke again, his voice quieter now. "You leave us no choice," he said. The successor stepped onto the lowest platform of the throne dais. Her posture was straight, her voice calm. "You have always had a choice," she replied. "You simply taught yourselves not to see it. Humanity will gain nothing from this," he said. "No territory, no throne, no authority. For generations," she said, "this seat has existed to preserve stability by removing anything that challenges it. Cultures, ideas, lives, that era ends now." Ancient protocols activated, scanning her biometrics, her genetic markers, her neural patterns. The same systems that had once labeled her a threat now confirmed her legitimacy. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. "Successor verified." The words appeared on screens across the capital. A collective breath was held, then released. The counselors stared at the confirmation in disbelief. Some looked angry, some looked relieved. One quietly closed his eyes. The lead counselor bowed his head a fraction. "The throne recognizes you," he said. "The Empire acknowledges." No futures decided without consent. Nothing collapsed, nothing burned. That frightened the old guard more than chaos ever could. Humanity's ship was allowed to depart unchallenged. No escorts followed, no trackers activated. The Empire did not pursue. They were too busy looking inward. Weeks passed. Imperial decrees changed tone, language softened. Emergency measures were quietly withdrawn. Some disappeared. Others were reclassified, then dismantled. Prisons that officially did not exist were quietly emptied. Across imperial worlds, people began to speak more freely. Not rebelliously, carefully, testing the boundaries. They found them wider. Human space did not celebrate with parades. There was relief, yes, pride even, but also caution. Humanity had not won a war. They had survived a test. Commander Elias Ward stood once again on the bridge of his ship, watching stars drift by. He was older now, not in years, but in understanding. The successor stood beside him, no longer a fugitive, not yet a ruler in the old sense. She wore no crown, no symbols, just simple attire. "You could have asked us to stay," Ward said. "Help enforce the changes. Why didn't you?" That may be humanity's greatest strength. But now, when Imperial simulations ran, humans were no longer listed as a destabilizing anomaly. They were listed as a constant, uncontrollable, unignorable. On the Imperial capital world, the successor finally entered the throne chamber alone. She sat not as a conqueror, but as a caretaker of something fragile. The future. Her first decree was simple. No being would ever be erased for what they might become. The second was quieter. The Empire would listen. Far away on a human colony rebuilt after evacuation, children played under an open sky. They did not know they had been part of history. They did not need to. That was the point. Commander Ward received one final message from the successor months later. The Empire is changing. Slowly. Painfully, but it is changing. Thank you for refusing to rule us. Ward smiled, closed the message, and looked out at the stars. Humanity had not claimed a throne. They had done something far more dangerous. They had proven that even the oldest, strongest systems in the galaxy could be challenged, not by force, but by the simple, stubborn belief that the future should be allowed to exist. And the galaxy would never forget that. I liberated the alien princess from captivity only to discover she was the Empire's successor, D.